everyone. Welcome. Just let you guys come on in here. I know it's been a while. Y'all should be rushing in here.
Right. We got some jewels to drop on y'all today.
Right.
Do that thing.
There you go. Yep. Hey guys. We have some joiners. I know it's been a while since I've been live, so here I am. I thought this was emergency enough to come drop some jewels with a good friend of mine, Aretha Funderburg from Funderburg Law. Let them know where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me on Instagram at Funderburg Law. That's F as in Frank, U and Nancy, D dog, E R Robert, B boy, U R Robert, G girl, Law, LAW.
That must be an attorney thing. And then I'm Samantha Banks with Financial ID and Wife Mommy CEO, of course. So we are here today to talk about wills and estates and things along those lines, because we already see when Prince passed away, he didn't have a will, and there's been some mishandling with his estate. And now the late Aretha Franklin has passed away, and she had no will either. So, I know a lot of information, but, I like to let the experts really talk about, these things. So here is Lorraine with Funderburg Law. So explain to us what an estate, will, trust, what is that really?
Okay, well, estate planning is basically the process of planning for your death or incapacitation. So that's when you're going to do a complete analysis of all your debts, assets, and liabilities, and then determine who gets what when in the event that you pass away. Or at incapacitation, that's where trust and powers of attorney come in, because you're no longer in your right mental capacity to act in your own behalf. So those types of estate planning tools come in handy at that.
Okay, so I guess to put it in layman's term, it's basically your net worth, right? Wrapped up, whether even where your kids are gonna go, God forbid something happens to you. That all goes into an estate, trust, will, etc., right?
Right, it can. So the thing is, I think the thing that people always get confused about, because I try to educate people on estate planning all the time, and they think, hey, I'm not rich and I'm not about to die, so I don't need an estate plan. And I'm like, that's where you're wrong, because, everybody has an estate. You could be poor, you got some shoes on your feet, you got a bank account, even if it only has $3 in it, that is your estate. Everything that you own, that every possession that you have becomes a part of your estate, and it has to go somewhere when you die. It's just that simple. And so you would want to have control over where those things are going. And if you have kids, you definitely want to have mechanisms put in place so that they are protected and taken care of even when you're gone. And a lot of times people think hey, my mom will do it, or my sister can take care of them, or this, that, and the third, and you'd be surprised how many people do the craziest things when somebody dies. People who have, been there for your parent or been there for you the entire time, and you think, hey, this person could be the executor of my will, or, the trustee of my trust, and, they don't do what you would have wanted them to do at that time. So it's best for you to plan now and put all these things into place so that there's no wiggle room for anybody to do anything that you wouldn't want them to do.
Exactly. So it's part of planning.
Absolutely. It's
planning ahead, provision. It's not just for the so-called wealthy. If you have any type of assets, you want to protect it. And a lot of us now have businesses.
Hello.
So you're going to want that to be ran properly or handed over. So one of the questions I seen on my Instagram post when I posted about going live about Aretha Franklin not having a will, one of the questions was, what happens to her assets now that she is gone and she has no will?
Okay, so when you die without a will, the laws of intestacy come into play. So in the state that you were a resident when you died, and I believe she was a Michigan resident. I'm not fully familiar with the laws in Michigan, but most of the intestacy laws are pretty similar across the board. So when somebody dies without a will, they basically run their assets through their heirs. That's their heirs at law. So it would be a spouse, it would be children, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and it just kind of goes down the line. So Aretha Franklin died with 4 sons. So her estate would be split equally amongst her 4 sons. If she had a husband, then half would go to him, and then the other half would be split equally amongst her 4 sons.
Okay, so someone said something about as cheats to the states.
Yes, escheat.
Oh,
Okay,
see?
so
I'm learning something new myself.
yes, so that is a concept where when you cannot find any heirs at law, then your assets go to the state. Now, there's a pretty thorough process of, I mean, it doesn't happen very often because they're, like I said, they're going to your children. You don't have kids, they're going to your children's children. They don't have kids, then we're going up, we're looking at your brothers and sisters. They don't exist, we're going to your parents. They don't exist, we're going to your grandparents. They don't exist, then we're going to your grandparents' kids. It's like, they're definitely going to try to find a relative before the state just gets it. So that's not something that happens very often.
Okay, so I have a question. So with that being said, that means that it's going to go to someone. So if she had a will in place, it would just, I guess, eliminate the battle of who's getting what.
So,
or do they still have the same rights to her estate as if she had a will?
So they have more rights to her estate with her dying intestate because they automatically just get whatever it is that she had. Now, had she had a will, she could have decided, 2 of my kids are going to get this, and these other 2, I'm disowning them, disinheriting them, they're not doing anything. So, and that's why I said in my blog, I'm convinced, because I'm like, Aretha, you had to have had a will. I'm like, maybe one of those kids had that will and didn't like how they were being taken care of, and was like, you know what, we're going to hide this thing, because I know under the laws of Michigan, I'm going to get 1/4 of whatever she has. So, I wouldn't put it past them. Like I said, you see some crazy things happening when people die. And
right.
It's very unfortunate, which is why estate planning is necessary. Like for me, I was more concerned about, not that, her kids were going to get everything in equal shares because that's probably how she would have wanted it anyways. It's more, once you put your assets, once you die intestate, then your whole estate has to be probated. Then you're looking at, federal and state taxes.
Wow.
You're looking at, the probate process, which could take years, eating up that money that's in there. Sometimes bonds have to be filed, for the person who's administering the estate. Sometimes, other creditors or things that she could have that could have been avoided from actually being paid if that money was held in trust somewhere else. So it's like, we're talking about attorney's fees. You got to pay people to have this whole process done. It's drawn out, it's lengthy, and that's just money being eaten up that could have gone to her beneficiaries.
So, when should you start planning?
Oh, immediately, if not sooner.
Okay.
I advise people with children, of course, to plan. So wills for me is a fallback plan. It's not your go-to estate planning tool. It's like, hey, if you're not going to have anything else, have a will at the bare minimum because it's more of a catch-all. So I advise a lot of people to do living trust. That's something that I would think she should have done. Now, I don't know if she did. I do not know Miss Aretha Franklin personally. I do not know any of her family members. The only news that we're getting is that, hey, she died without a will. She died without a will, but she could have had a living trust in place, which is private. It's not something that goes to the court system, and that's why people do that, because they don't want people all in their business.
There you go.
And so then her estate and assets could really be handled through that trust. We don't know. We just know she didn't die with a will. But even if she had any, now my inkling is that she did not, because if she saw an estate planning attorney and they drafted her a trust, they would have drafted her a will just as a fallback plan, just in case, there are items that don't go into the trust. They have to be willed. And then just in case something in the trust, some provision or something fails, then those, assets or something have to go somewhere, then the will takes care of that. So I don't know any estate planning attorney who would draft an estate plan that would not include a will. So
gotcha. But like she said, there still could be a possibility that she can have a trust, and it can be a private trust.
And there are also other like probate avoidance techniques that she may have employed, like joint tenancy. That's something that people do. If you deed your property, any type of property, or banks that accounts, anything like that, in joint tenancy with somebody else, they get that automatically when you pass. So that's something that doesn't have to go through probate. It becomes theirs automatically the second that you no longer cease to exist. So I mean, there could be a number of things going on. I want to give Miss Franklin some credit because I just think it's ridiculous that, she didn't have a will.
Okay. So in this case, for planning for, the future, or even, your mom, your funerals and things like that, like what are some other considerations that you want to plan for besides just the will and estates? Like what are some things that we can do now to start moving towards the process?
Okay, well, I'll tell you very briefly, but now this is my sales pitch, except it's not a sales pitch because I will be doing a free webinar, a week-long webinar where I will get into the various estate planning tools and how you can go about using them and implementing them for yourself, even without retaining an attorney, even though you should, hint, hint. Me, I'm available. But so a will, we discussed that. A trust, we discussed that. You want to have powers of attorney, both financial and medical. So your power of attorney document is where you're basically appointing another individual to act on your behalf in the event that you are unable to. So those come in good, come in well when like incapacitation, or just if you can't move or do something. So when you're talking about the durable power of attorney for finances, that's basically giving somebody else permission to be you when it comes to handling your finances. And when we're talking about the healthcare medical directive, or the power of attorney for medical, that's basically giving somebody else permission to make medical decisions for you in the event that you are unable to do so. And that type of stuff is important in emergent situations. Anything could happen. You walk outside, get hit by a car, and nobody knows, what you would do or how you would want to respond in this type of situation. They don't know what kind of medical conditions you have previously, what kind of things could interfere with, the treatment that's coming. Like, you should always just have somebody who is able to who knows your medical history, who's able to at least get access to your medical records, to get them to the acting physician at that time, just so that your stuff is taken care of or done the way that you would want it to be done. And then we also have the healthcare proxy, which is kind of like it's the living will. It's basically the document that's like the do not resuscitate order type thing. Like if you are unable to speak, you're almost on your deathbed, it's like, hey, what I want, life-sustaining treatment, what I want you to feed me through a tube, any of these things, you kind of list them out at the beginning so that people know when you're at that point, like how much you would want to hold on, versus, because when stuff like that happens, some family members they're holding on for dear lives, like, no, she's gonna wake up from this coma, I know she's been in there for 13 years, but today's the day. So, you might not have wanted to live like that, but somebody else who's holding on to you is like, no, this is exactly how she's gonna live because I'm not ready to say goodbye. So, you just want to be as much in control of your own life and everything that you've worked so hard to obtain during your life when you're no longer here to control it. That's pretty much all it boils down to.
And that's very important, guys, because just speaking a little bit on experience, when my mother passed away, like, we knew she had certain conditions or whatnot, but we didn't know she was gonna die on that day. Like, nothing about her condition said she was basically going to die instantly. So when it came to, I'm living in Atlanta at the time, she's in Florida going through some of these things, I can't get access to any of her medical records until I show them that I was, the beneficiary, and they want to see the death certificate, even though I'm her child. So because none of these things were in place, I had to wait, which also prolonged the process of me even finding out what happened to my mother because she passed away in her sleep. So these are things that you just want to think about because anything can happen. No one thought she was going to be gone. She wasn't on a hospital bed when she passed away. She was going about her business. So you just never know when these things are going to happen. So you just want to have them in place and just, especially if you're creating wealth, like opening businesses, buying property, doing real estate, just any of these things.
Absolutely, and that's what I say. I see it's like a trend now. Everyone's always talking about legacy, building an empire, generational wealth, and I'm like, that sounds good, but you're gonna have to do more than hashtag than for that to happen.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You have to secure the wealth.
Absolutely.
And there was a question up top when we first started. Someone said, "What if your children don't want your business?" I guess as far as putting that in the estate, then I guess a spouse or something, or...
So you should actually have something called a business succession plan. That is another estate planning tool that's separate from like, hey, I'm just leaving this in my will or whatever. Sometimes people don't think that far ahead, so the business does get left in their will. But if you have a business, especially if you have a business with other people, that's definitely something that you guys collectively need to draft and determine, like, hey, what happens to this business in case this person's no longer able to act? Like, does the person, do their heirs receive like a beneficial interest, profit, or is it just like, hey, we swallow up the rest of it and the business becomes ours? So that's a document that is kind of separate. It is an estate planning tool, but it's something that needs to be done for sure. And if you have kids who are not trying to run your business or do what you do, you definitely don't want to leave them in a position to do so, because that's just you leaving your legacy, and you probably want to leave it to somebody who is going to carry it on in the way that you would want it to be carried on.
Well, I hope this was informative, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Share the video so that other people are educated on this.
Yes, y'all, and so when I do the 5-day thing, really I'm going to put y'all on to what I like to call the poor man's estate plan, because I'm like, y'all ain't out here really trying to pay for these services to get an estate plan, but I love y'all enough to do it for y'all for free, or at least put you in a position so that you can do it for free, because you need to have it done. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And especially us, Black people, our community, like, we're behind on a whole lot of stuff. And
whole lot.
This is definitely one of them. So it's not something to just brush over or, think, oh, I can do it later. Later is not promised, and you just never ever know what's going to happen. And I can say, honestly, I didn't do mine, I think, until right when I had my second child. When I had my first, I did a will just to have something. Like, okay, let me just throw something together, because I wanted to at least put some guardian terminology in there somewhere. Like, hey, if something happens and I know, at least I'm sending my kid to this person. And a will is really the only estate planning document that you can provide guardianship for your children. So that was what was important to me at the time. But by the time I had my daughter, my business was a little bit booming a little bit more. I had a little bit more going on, and it wasn't just that I had a little bit more going on. I think when I had her, I started to feel just like more responsible for her in a way that I didn't feel for my son. And so I was like, oh, I got to get some stuff together, and it just really started to make me nervous. Like, what happened? What would happen if this? Who's going to do this?
Right.
And then what? And it was like, you ask yourself all these questions, and you start realizing that nothing's in place to fix those, fix those problems if they come up. So I was like, oh no,
right.
I need an estate plan now.
And you don't want to leave those burdens on other people.
Not.
Especially, she spoke about children. If you have children, you might think, oh yeah, this, godparent will love to take them, but if you don't have, right. If you don't have anything in place stating where exactly they're going to go and what's the plan, they can be like, yeah, I was the godparent when she was living, but maybe I just don't want that responsibility right now. She ain't here. So, you don't want them off somewhere else.
And please know that there's no law on the books anywhere, as far as I'm aware, that says godparents have to take your kids when you die. That's something that we made up somewhere along the lines, and it makes us feel better to say it at the end of the day, but
you need to have secure things in place.
Absolutely.
That's just the reality.
And you need to have discussions with the people who you are placing in these positions in your estate plan, because nobody likes to be surprised when you die. Like, oh, you left me, your kids. That's nice.
Right.
I didn't anticipate taking care of any more children, but you definitely want to have those open, candid conversations with the people who are close to you and around you, and figure out, who's going to play what role, and make sure they're on board for doing so.
So do any of you have any questions, comment, ask? Feel free to ask, because you know how much it is to get an attorney on the phone. So this is the time to ask, guys, if you have any questions about estates, trust, wills, or anything like that. So I guess we can give you guys a recap before we wrap it up. Hit share, guys, so that other people are getting informed as well. So Prince did not have a will, and from my understanding, he doesn't even have any heirs. So
well, he didn't have any kids. He had siblings, though.
Okay, so he had siblings, but a lot of his estate is still getting mishandled from the news, and we don't know these people personally. We're just going by the news. So then moving forward now, Aretha Franklin didn't have a will either. So they're saying that her children are splitting everything evenly, and what Lorraine said from Funderburg Law is that she could have a private trust that still secured some of these things, so they didn't have to go through probate to even get them involved. So that is a possibility. But she did not have a will in place. That's what the news is saying. So these are things that she probably didn't prepare for. We don't know, because she could have a private trust. But if you don't prepare for them, she said even with the legalities of the children getting her estates and stuff like that, it can still go through the whole probate process where some of these things are still getting eaten up. So that's still money getting eaten up because it wasn't planned for properly. So if you have any questions, again, you can find her at
Funderburg Law or Esquire Lorraine.
But are you prepared? I think.
Is that? Yes, we're prepared. Thank you.
Good people leave wealth to children's children. Facts.
Yes.
So that's been written in the book from the beginning of time. Leave wealth to your children's children. And don't pass down the struggle.
Please don't pass down the struggle. I swear, Black people love passing down the struggle. If we don't pass down nothing else, that's it. Well, I will leave you with this, guys, is that if you go to your state's like Department of Health and Human Resources site, or even just do a Google search, a lot of them have state forms for, at least for your medical directives, and maybe for a power of attorney that are valid in the state that you live in. So look, all you have to do is fill it out. It's already, statutory.
So if you don't have the money,
right?
There are some free tools where you can at least plan for the process. So
yes.
If you don't take nothing else in, write that down and take that in.
Right.
So utilize what you do have until you can, pay an attorney to do, the rest of the stuff. Or if not, just do your research thoroughly and figure out how you can do it too.
Just do something.
Just do something.
Please just do something, because we can't keep having no more of this. This just doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't.
And that's what actually, when I was reading in the story that you sent me, and I'm like, I have to thank Sam so much for, she sent me this story about Aretha Franklin last night, and I had just sat down on my computer to do a blog on estate planning. And I'm like, thank you, here's my topic. And so when I read it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just crazy. So it's getting me all riled up. And I'm like, we've been receiving like a good response. Like,
right.
People are now paying attention, I guess, a little bit, which is really what we're trying to do. And
all we're trying to do.
Right. And in the article, that's what it was. It stated that I guess she was very kind of shy about letting people know that she was experiencing health issues and stuff all these years. And when people would ask her on interviews, she'd always be like, oh no, I'm fine and fabulous. And then, you know, me reading that, I'm like, that could be a lot of the reason why she did not have an estate plan done. Because it's like, I'm not talking about death because I'm not trying to face that right now. You know what I mean? But I'm here to tell you death is coming, whether you face it or not. So you might as well just be planned for it, prepared for it.
So it almost sounds like, so if she didn't want to talk to people about the health issues and she didn't want to probably do it because maybe, you know, the fear of it getting out if she started, you know, planning for it, you know, that she did have health issues, you know, that's almost just, if that is the case, like, that's not fair.
Yeah, I think it's a part of like mind games, we play on ourselves as people. It's like, because even when I talk to other people about getting wills and stuff, like, oh, I'm not trying to think about that, I'm good, and it's like, okay, you may be fine today, great, that's not a problem, but like, what do they say? There's only two things that are certain in this world, death and taxes, so, I mean.
And by the way.
Right. So it's just, at this point, especially as a parent, it's the responsible thing to do. Like,
responsible.
Yeah. If you love your kids, that's just a part of being a mother or a father, is planning for them when you are no longer able to physically take care of them.
Yep, absolutely. So guys, I am going to let y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments and we will answer them. Other than that, go follow Funderburg Law. She will be doing a 5-day series, right?
Yes.
Discussing estates, trust, wills, basically estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you tune into that. And
yes, I don't have a date yet. I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of time to circulate this video and get some other people on board so that I'm not talking to just 3 of y'all, because y'all not gonna waste 5 of my days.
Listen, those 3 people. Hey, he who have an ear, let him hear.
You right.
So
you right.
Give us the ones who do want to hear. Let us get those jewels. And then you can always, consult your attorney nearby if you need to be face to face with someone. Because I know a lot of you guys are from all over the place. But get these things done. It's just living with purpose. We're not passing down the struggle anymore.
That's
we are
right.
breaking those cycles.
Absolutely.
And we are putting solid things in place. And this just go from experience. Like I said, I lost my mom overnight. She wasn't on a hospital bed saying she was going to pass away. Like, we had no time to plan for nothing, and nothing was in place. It was everywhere. So now everyone else after that learned from it. So everyone in my family now has a plan in place, because they just see, how the only thing guaranteed is taxes and death. So and I do help you with your taxes too. So I'm here to provide solutions.
Right.
So if you have any questions, guys, really start digging in and doing some research on this stuff, because it's inevitable, and we have children. Our community are building legacies now, and we have to secure them. A lot of us are doing great things. Let's make sure we're securing this wealth so it's not going to probate.
Absolutely. So your efforts will not be in vain.
Absolutely. That would just be horrible. Give it right back to them.
Hello. Who does that?
Right.
Not y'all, right?
Right.
Not us.
Not us.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, you'll be seeing me a lot more. Thanks for tuning in, and y'all have a good evening.
Yeah.